Hi, children. I'm going to tell you a story called The Little Match Girl, which was written by Hans Christian Andersen. It will take us to the Kingdom of Denmark, which is far from your home and located in northern Europe. The story happened a long time ago. In a cold street on New Year's Eve night, there was a little girl who had to sell matches just to survive. Isn't that really strange, children? On New Year's Eve, children should be at home with their parents, shouldn't they? But what's even more strange is that her matches had magical powers. They transported her to where happiness existed forever, and there was no more starvation, coldness, or sadness. Now, children, let's listen to this pathetic story. That night was New Year's Eve, and it was terribly cold and snowy. There was a little girl who, bareheaded and with nothing on her feet, walked alone along the dark street. As she left home, she had worn slippers, which were the last thing her mother gave to her before she had died. However, they were too large, and she had lost them when she crossed the street. The first slipper was crushed by a carriage and stuck to the carriage's wheel and disappeared without a trace. The second one was picked up by a naughty boy, and he threw it up in the air. He laughed and said he would keep it to make a bed for his puppy.
Give it to me. Give it back to
No way.
me, please.
I will keep it and make a bed for my puppy.
And so she had to walk
Sir,
on with bare
God bless
feet,
you.
so her feet
Please buy
turned
my
first
matches.
red
Madam,
and then blue
please buy my
because of the
matches.
coldness. Her old apron
I
was
don't
full of
want
matches,
this, sir.
and her right hand
God
still
bless
held
you.
a bundle of
Stay away
them.
Please buy my matches.
She tried to reach a crowded place, but no one
Madam,
noticed her or
please
bought
buy my
anything
matches.
from her. During the entire day, she had not sold anything,
Sir,
and no one had
God
given her
bless
a
you.
penny.
Please
The
buy
poor
my
girl,
matches.
so cold and hungry, still walked
Madam,
along the street
please
with the
buy
snow
my
falling on her
matches.
head and down her back.
Sir, God bless
Stay
you.
away from
Please
me.
buy my matches.
All the windows were lit up, and there was a wonderful smell of roast goose. It was New Year's Eve. As her kind grandmother was alive, her family celebrated the New Year's Eve at home happily together. However, the reaper had taken her grandmother away. Her family had run out of money, so she had been forced to leave her lovely house, which was decorated with beautiful climbing ivy. She now lived in a dark slum and had to listen to her father scolding every day.
Wow, it smells tasty. I wish I could have a slice of roast goose.
It was so cold, she sat down in a corner. She drew her little feet up close to her, but it became colder and colder, and her little hands were almost numb with cold. She could not go home, as if she had not sold any matches or received any money, her dad would have beaten her.
Do you dare to come home without money? Get out of the house now.
Oh, it's so cold. Should I burn a single match to get warmer?
She was wondering, and she dared to take one from the bundle of matches, and then she burned it. What a wonderful light it was! She thought she was sitting before a large fireplace, and the flame was dancing and warmed her delightfully. She stretched out her feet to warm them, but the flame went out, and then the fireplace disappeared too. She held the remains of the burnt-out match and felt very sad. Without thinking, she struck a second match. This time, the wall turned into a veil, and she could see into the room. There was a table in the middle which was full of delicious foods. The most wonderful thing was the roast goose, and it appeared to jump right out of its dish and came up to her with a knife and fork in its back. And then the match went out. In front of her now was a cold, thick wall. On the street, there were still some people passing by, but they didn't notice her at all. She struck the third match. Suddenly, a large Christmas tree appeared. Hundreds of candles were shining and twinkling beautifully on the green branches. The little girl reached both her hands toward them, but all the candles flew up and turned into stars in the sky.
Oh, maybe someone is about to pass away.
She was thinking of what her grandmother always told her before she had died. When a star falls, a good soul goes up to heaven. She rubbed another match against the wall. The yellow light shone around, and she could clearly see her grandmother smiling at her.
Grandma,
she cried.
take me with you. I know you will go away when the match burns out, like the tasty roast goose and like the large Christmas tree. But please don't leave me, Grandma. We used to be so happy, and you told me that if I was a good girl, I could meet you in heaven one day. I beg you, please tell God that I want to follow you.
When the match burnt out, the shining mirage vanished in front of her face.
Grandma, don't leave me. Please tell God that I want to live with you.
And so, one by one, she struck the whole bundle of matches. She wanted to keep her grandmother near her. The matches gave such a brilliant light that it was brighter than at midday. She had never seen how beautiful and tall her grandmother was. It was an amazing moment as her grandmother took hold of her hands and took her flying higher and higher. Neither hungriness, coldness, or sadness could threaten them now, since they were with God. Next morning, snow still covered the street, but as the sun rose, it was much warmer. Children were excited when their parents let them go out to play. In the corner, leaning against the wall, sat the little girl with red cheeks and a smiling mouth. Next to her, there was a bundle of matches which had all been burnt. She had frozen to death on New Year's Eve. They said maybe she was trying to warm herself, but no one knew the last magical thing she saw last night. Children, this story is over now. This story is woeful and meaningful, isn't it? As you all know, around us there are many children who are less fortunate than you. They have to work outside to survive like the little match girl. So we should feel sorry for them and help them if we can. If everyone is kind-hearted, life will be much more beautiful, don't you think, children? Thank you for listening to this story. Goodbye for now, and see you soon.
Poor her. Does anyone know? Where do her parents live? Poor her. Does anyone know? Where do her parents live?